Well, good morning, everybody. This is DearMamaSal on a very chilly, actually, Wednesday morning. It's 1 degree here in southern British Columbia, which would make it the equivalent of 33. It is frosty. There's still frost on all the roofs, and I did my good deed for the day. I was very happy with myself. You know, there's no doubt about it. Doing a good deed makes you feel good. I was busy taking the ice off my car and realized that it was really quite chilly, and I should give my car enough time to warm up this morning. And so while I was waiting, I went and cleared all the ice off Yvonne's car as well. So she's going to come out feeling that she's late and then find out she doesn't have to scrape her car. That'll make her happy. So it made me happy too, obviously. A couple of things today. Number one, I wanted to talk about a viewer question or a statement that came in from a viewer. And also I wanted to start talking about how do you get over emotional pain. So let's start with the viewer question or statement. That was from a viewer called Shannon. And she was telling me that she really has spent her life being the mother for the children in her family through medical reasons. And that her mother really wasn't in a position to play mother to the children. And so she took on the role as the oldest daughter. And now she is really having problems living a normal life because all her life she has been that responsible. And I couldn't help but feeling that there are quite a few other people in the DearMamaSal network who understand that feeling. And obviously will be able to sympathize with Shannon and also give her, hopefully, a few tips on... I'm presuming some have managed to live a normal life following this, or have managed to find a way to live a pretty normal life, because I'm pretty sure that that sort of overbears you for a lifetime to some degree. And then the next question is, how do you stop yourself from resenting to some degree the younger children who didn't have that responsibility? And the reason I say that is I think that is part of the problem that I have with my sister, is that she perceives that I got an easier ride than she did. And so you look at it and you go, wow, that's a difficult one to deal with. So let's take it in its parts. So the first thing is that you've spent a lifetime being responsible for everything. Well, I'd like to suggest that if you haven't already, it's a really good idea, if you really want to address this issue and learn how to live, it would be a really good idea to get some help on this. And the reason I say that is because if you spent your life being the controller of a family, and I say controller with good reason, then the chances are you're trying to control everything and everybody around you, even if you don't see it. Because that's your safest place. That's where you've felt the most safe and valuable, even though it was the scariest place for you. And so one of the things that is important to learn is how to let go of needing to control and rule the world. You know, I was always in a position of great power in my jobs and things that I did. And to actually learn to let go of that, to stop controlling it, was quite an experience. And I was good at it too. So it was quite an experience for me to let that go. But I needed help doing it because there was no way I could do it naturally. I didn't have the skill set for that, that's for sure. I knew the answer to everything. And so I really encourage you to learn that. I had to learn that it was okay to sit around and do nothing. Not that I do that well even to this day, but I had to learn that. And really what I'd done was to create myself into some sort of, how can I word this? I would say almost frenetic, very high drama lifestyle. And I hated it. And in so many levels, and I loved it on others. So to learn how to undo that and to balance out my life was very difficult. I sometimes think that I balanced it a little too far in some ways, and then in other ways, no, I haven't. It just feels like it was too far because I don't feel responsible for everybody and everything anymore. I don't feel I have to fix everybody. I don't feel that I have to make everybody's life easier, or I don't know. It's a different feeling. So that was my first feeling, was wow, if you've got the ability to get some help with this, get it. Get somebody, and if you haven't, then find somebody who's done it and see if you can use them as a mentor. For some of you who have strong support systems through your religion, you might be able to get it, at your place of worship, that you can find a mentor who can help you through this. Because it is actually a common thing. Not everybody has it in the same direction, but the problem, if I can word it that way, is common. You're not the only person in the world that's done this, or going through this, or feeling the need to live a life as opposed to live everybody else's life. But first of all, I wanted to make sure that we give Shannon a huge round of applause for realizing she's got the problem. And to want to do something about it. So yay, way to go. So I would call upon any of the Dear Mama Sal peeps who have been through this and have found a way out, who learned how to let go and to start living their own life as opposed to everybody else's. I know that I've said many times in talks that I've done, I gave up being ruler of the universe. Because there were days when I really felt that's how I was acting. And the thing is, quite honestly, the number one thing you have to trust is that people actually are capable of sorting their own problems out. Most people do not need you to fix them, from my experience. Most people need options. Especially women. One of the biggest mistakes that most men make is when they hear that the woman they love has an issue, a problem of some sort, they try and fix it. Well, no, it's not what women want. Women want to talk it out and to get a couple of options as to what they could do. Because really the time that they overwhelm is when they can't work out what their options are anymore. Right? You can imagine when I was having the problem with my sewage system, if the only option is to spend tens of thousands of dollars, it's pretty overwhelming. But when somebody comes in and says, no, I think that another option is we can do X, Y, and Z, as a start, and if that works, that's great, but if it doesn't, then we may need to go to the second thing. Well, yay, let's try the first one. So you see, this is the whole thing that people just don't get, is most people hate it when people try and fix their problems in some way, unless you're a victim. If you're a victim, then you don't want to take any responsibility for anything. I definitely didn't get that feeling about Shannon at all. She's quite the opposite. Overly responsible for everybody's stuff, I'm sure. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to talk about, because that's a really important thing, and also sort of segues beautifully into the second one, which is, how do you start dealing with emotional pain? And I've had so many people write to me in the last week or so in a lot of emotional pain, whether it's due to brokenheartedness, whether it's due to loss of dreams, whether it's due to, you know, whatever. But just a lot of people in a lot of emotional pain wrote to me this week. And one of the things that I get asked a lot from people is, how do I cope with that? How do I not take that on and, you know, and feel that pain myself? And I think that's an important question, because it will help everybody hopefully understand how to get out of it. It is our choice as to how deeply we allow things to affect us. That is our choice. Now, some things are very, very deep because we have invested a great deal. In other words, if you thought this person was the love of your life, and I've been there, and they suddenly dump you or do whatever, you know, betray you, you name it, then it feels like somebody took their hand and ripped out your heart and took it out and stomped all over it and left it on the ground. And there is no quick fix that I know of for that. I do know, though, and I've said it before, that men seem to recover from it. Most men, let me not say all, because that would not be true. Most men recover far more quickly from this, because it happens to them too, of course, than women do. And from what I can see from my experience, and you can talk about yours, that women seem to hold on in a different way. Men just want to move on. You know, they grieve, but then they want to move on to happiness. They want to be loved again. And so they will just go, okay, next. And they start doing what they know how to do to get the next person to love them. And women, almost quite the opposite. Women seem to stay in that place of anger and revenge almost for a long time. And only after years of realizing that it doesn't work, it's not making any difference, do they actually realize that maybe they need to change that behavior. And then they start healing. All right, so let's have a look at that. So how do you start changing that? One of the things that's helped me, and I've been through really bad stuff in terms of betrayal and so forth. I eventually, after it happened to me enough, I eventually learned one thing. And it wasn't easy, but it was true. I had to learn to tell myself, if you truly loved this person, then you would want for them to be happy even if it wasn't with you. That's what love is. Now, I know that sucks, but it is true. And so it makes it very, very difficult because it means you have to let go. You have to let go of the fantasy that they'll come back. You have to, in your heart, let go. And so I can't help wondering whether some mothers have to go through that process when they allow their sons to get married, for example. And especially when it's maybe somebody that they don't particularly like. I watched that happen not so long ago with a friend of mine. And it was very difficult on the parents. Because the parents really had a question mark about this person. But you know, you have to sit down and go, hey, if that person is going to make my son or daughter happy, isn't that what I want for them? Even if I don't think they're the right person. And by the way, if 2 years later you get proven right, for goodness sake, have the decency not to say I told you so. Or that's what I thought. Okay, so first step is to know it's going to take time. It takes time to recover from very difficult hurt. It takes time to relearn lifelong patterns. In other words, if you have a history of attracting the wrong people and getting hurt, then maybe the problem is you. Maybe you haven't learned to set your boundaries. Maybe you haven't learned, you know, you're so desperate for love that anything is better than nothing. And there are quite a few of us who will tell you that, boy, sometimes nothing is better than anything by comparison. So, you know, you really do understand after a while that you are part of the problem. It's not all them. And that's difficult. And whether it is because we're needy or clingy or insecure, which would make us needy and clingy, whatever the reasons are, we're so desperate for love that we are difficult in relationships. You know, we get codependent, we do all sorts of things. So if you know that this is your problem, because it resonates with you, it makes sense, then get some help. You cannot have a healthy relationship without help. You cannot take on loving somebody else if you don't really love yourself. Well, you can take it on, but it's not going to be successful for either of you to any large degree. Now, having said that, I could be totally wrong on that, because there are some relationships I know where an insecure person has married somebody who has fulfilled their every need, and they became quite secure in that. But the problem would be that they are secure in the relationship, not necessarily in themselves. Does that make sense? So it's an exciting time when you decide to look at yourself and decide you want to change. It's an exciting time because it's challenging. It requires a change. And in January, that's a good thing to be thinking about, is changes. And how you're going to do that, and give yourself the time to do it. Some of us live in this world where everything needs to be instantaneous. You know, I want to feel better, so I want to take a pill. And if one pill doesn't work, let me take 3, you know. And then when 3 pills don't work, let me take even more. So to me, if we don't do our share, if we don't do the work on ourselves, then the pills alone will never fix us. We will just be in need of more and more pills. I think intellectually we have to understand that. If you want to stop being responsible for everybody, stop being responsible for everybody. It's quite simple. You know, when people phone you up and go, what do I do? What do I do? My answer always is, I have no idea what you should do. This is your life. However, I could give you some choices. I don't feel responsible for fixing the problem. I feel like a friend who can give them options and hold them accountable and trust them to do their own fixing. Make sense? So the first way you get out of emotional pain is to realize that you are part of the pain, right? This is not all caused by the other person. And as you cannot fix the other person, and which will be step 2, is you cannot fix the other person because they're going to need to fix themselves if they want to. Then the only thing you can really do is to change yourself. And tomorrow we'll talk about some of the things why we can't fix the other person, and then also we will also talk about some of the things you can do to make each day a little better if you choose to, once you've got over the initial grieving. And how long does that take? Quite honestly, it takes as long as it takes. It takes as long as you want to stay in it, as anybody who has gone through a major grief will tell you. It's not, there is not a sort of set timeline that says, okay, you've had 3.5 weeks of this, that's enough. Although everybody will want to tell you that. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, I'm sorry if you've been in emotional pain. Take a deep breath. Know it will get better if you want it to. This is Dear Mama Sal saying bye-bye for now.